The average age of somebody disclosing or even remembering their abuse as a child, the average age is 52 years old. That's my age. And if you're holding on to this subconscious negativity, even if you don't remember it, it's coming out.
This is Right About Now with Ryan Alford, a Radcast Network production. We are the #1 business show on the planet with over 1 million downloads a month. Taking the BS out of business for over 6 years and over 400 episodes. You ready to start snapping necks and cashing checks? Well, it starts right about now.
Right about now.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Right About Now. We always keeping it right. We're definitely right now. And we've got the founder of Liberating Humanity. He is Pablo from the Sound of Freedom, executive producer and primary investor. What's up, Paul Hutchinson?
Hey, Ryan. Excited to be here on your show.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I know you're a few miles south of us, even in South Carolina. Usually we're in the South, but you're down, down below the border, aren't you?
My wife and daughter are like, hey, last winter we were at our ranch in Utah. We had 5 feet of snow in our backyard, in our front yard, in our driveway, right? And the girls, my Colombian bride, she's like, can we not be in the cold next winter? So yeah, we're here in Latin America. We're setting up healing retreats and safe houses for the kids in different countries throughout Latin America. And we have a lot of speaking engagements with governments and senates and Congress and whatnot down here, and helping them change policy. Now that the movie is out, they got a lot of pressure from their constituents saying, hey, what are we doing about this? And because I've served undercover in most of these countries, I know what's working and what isn't working when it comes to their policies in fighting child trafficking. Yeah,
and it's a wonderful cause, and I want to get to a lot of that. Liberating humanity, that's it sort of describes itself. And we'll talk a lot about, the Sound of Freedom and stuff like that. But talk to me about liberating humanity. It's a big ask,
Ryan,
isn't it?
It's a big one. It's a big one because, and it's liberating from what, right? It's liberating from all the shit we did in our past, or even the things that happened to us, our trauma from our childhood, our addictions to pornography and alcohol and whatever else, liberating from all of this stuff that we need to break free from. I mean, the reality is we're all of us are in some way a slave, whether it's we're a slave to the opioid crisis, whether we're a slave to our addiction to social media, whether we're a slave to our addiction to pornography, whatever. I mean, there's so many things that are keeping us in a place where we're not able to really expand. And the reason why I moved into this from just the foundation that I started the Child Liberation Foundation a number of years ago, and that paid for the rescues of the children and the rehabilitation, all of those things with the Child Liberation Foundation. That still exists. My wife is running it and doing a way better job than I was. But after 10 years of doing undercover work and over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries, I looked at the numbers and I realized there's more children being sold today than there was 10 years ago. And I looked in the mirror and I said, Paul, if your goal in your life is to eradicate child trafficking, and that goal came from 10 years ago when I was on that first operation, the one that was depicted in Sound of Freedom, and these traffickers brought out these children, these little kids. I mean, we're talking 11, 12, 13 years old, right? And this little 11-year-old girl standing in front of me, they called her Princess. She was the one in the movie that they were, trying to find and whatnot. They stood that little girl in front of me, and all I could see was fear in her eyes. And I made a commitment to myself, to God, to that child, to every child who's in that situation, that I was going to dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. So 10 years later, when I realized that after 70 missions, there's still more kids being sold today than there was 10 years ago, I said, Paul, you're not doing a very good job. What needs to happen to really fix this? And I realized that just being a Rambo, just going undercover, just going finding these kids and pulling 20 kids at a time, it was never going to fix the problem. Because every time we pulled 20 children out of hell, it left a vacuum. If not enough was being done to fix the demand, then another 20 or 30 more kids were being sucked in to create this solution to this insatiable demand. And so I thought, well, where is this coming from? What needs to happen to fix the demand side? Now, most of us, you, me, others, we're good men and women, whether we were abused as children or not. We're never, ever going to pass that trauma on to a child. It is something that we're protectors. However, there's a lot of people that are holding on to a lot of pain. And I realized that the traffickers, the perpetrators, and humanity as a whole was contributing to this problem. And somebody may say, well, I've never touched a child. Yeah, maybe your anger issues are contributing, right? What about your pornography addiction is making it so that you are treating other human beings as subservient in some way? You're looking at women as a commodity. This is all part of that same energy that is creating human trafficking as a whole. And human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, the second most profitable, and it's all coming from this negative energy that we're holding on to. And I had to take a step back. I said, okay, I've never done anything illegal when it came to, trafficking kids, whatever. But what is it in my life that needs to change and everybody else to change this global collective mindset that's creating it? And I realized that these traffickers, every one of them, they didn't all have, tattoos on their cheeks and earrings in their noses and whatever, but every one of them were dealing with massive arrogance and greed and lust. And so I had to ask myself, how is arrogance, greed, and lust affecting my relationships, my life? How is it contributing to the negativity in the world as a whole? And so that's what Liberating Humanity is all about, is helping us take a step back. And, I have a series coming out on liberating yourself financially as well. I did a bunch of charity work, but I got there from building a successful company, multi-billion-dollar company. And so teaching people some of those tools that I used to help liberate themselves financially is all part of this whole focus of liberating humanity.
I love that, Paul. And you almost answered kind of where my natural next question was going, was what the hell's wrong with people? And, it's because I think the reality is, for me, I have 4 boys, younger boys, and we're insulated, in the States from a lot of this. We don't think, we think this stuff happens in movies. Wait, it's not really,
we believe
going
we're
on.
Insulated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know what I mean? Like we live in the,
we'll talk about that fake, that false belief, and really what we as parents should be concerned about.
Exactly. But I do and you went there, some of the core the destigmatizing and the lack of moral compass that guides a lot of things, I think, is where you were going. But I just don't know what the hell, how do we get to this point where it's growing? Child trafficking is growing. I can't wrap my head. I feel like I'm a smart guy. I can't wrap my head around it.
Here's where it's going. Here's why it's expanding as fast as it is. So 1 in every 4 women that 1 in every 4 have been a victim of sexual violence as a child. Almost 50% or more of women at some time in their life, but 1/4 of all women as a child were a victim of sexual violence. For men, it's a little bit less. It's 1 in 5 anytime in their life, about 20% of men. But even those, 1/4 of them, it was under the age of 10 years old. And the majority of kids who are abused, the majority of them, it's a familial contact. It's a family member. Over 90% of them is somebody the family knows or an uncle or whatever else. And so here's what's happening. The average age of somebody disclosing or even remembering their abuse as a child, the average age is 52 years old. That's my age.
Wow.
I've raised my kids. I've built my career. I've all of this stuff. And if you're holding on to this subconscious negativity, even if you don't remember it, it's coming out. It's coming out in either low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, anger issues, or it's coming out in what I call trauma transfer, in the transfer of that trauma in verbal abuse, physical abuse, and even sexual abuse, and in some cases of children. So here's the scary numbers. The majority of men who have been abused as children, the majority of them go out and they're protectors, they're never going to pass that on. However, that majority is only 2/3. Literally if you take these numbers now, 1 out of every 5 of us have been through something in some time in our life. 1/4 of those, now it's, a very young age, most of them in their own home. And 1/3 of those, if not giving the love, the help, and the healing that they need, will become contact offenders. And 70% of contact offenders, they have between 1 and 9 victims. Another 20% is between 9 and up to 70 plus victims, right? And so this generational transfer of this trauma is what's happening. And men, they hold on to it. They don't want to let it out. They don't, that thing that happened to me when I was 8 by my uncle. If I talk about that, it'll make me less of a man if people know. No, it won't. You were 8. There was a horrible thing that happened from somebody that was dealing with a lot of pain themselves, and it doesn't define you today. And the simple act of talking about it, even if it's just privately with your spouse, saying, hey, you know what? I feel like I need to talk about something that happened to me when I was a child. Just talking about it, that act alone takes it from 1/3 down to about 1 in 50 of being of people that are passing it on. So this stigma of, I don't want to talk about this horrible thing, that's what's creating the perpetuation of this transfer of this trauma. I realized as I was doing undercover work, people ask me all the time, they say, Paul, how can you go face to face with somebody selling you a child and not have them see the anger and the hatred in your eyes? And my answer surprises people, and it makes some people mad. Here's what it is. I don't hate them. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm in a unique position to be able to say this, because how many other people listening have put their lives in danger to ensure that person never hurts innocence again, right? I'm not a pedophile sympathizer, right? But what I wish more than anything is that I could have saved those kids before they were ever traumatized in the first place. How does that look? Going back 5 or 10 years, having a time machine, going back and taking that perpetrator and saying, what is going on in your life? This is before he ever crosses that line, right? What's going on in your life where you think that it's okay to go down that road, to make money from exploiting children, right? Or to take out your fantasies on children? What makes it okay in your mind to think that? And most of them were raped themselves. Most of them went through severe abuse as children. I've realized that if I'm ever judging another human being, whether it's for cutting me off on the freeway, whether it's for selling me a child, if I'm ever judging another human being, there's a 100% chance that I don't have all the facts. There's only one person in the universe that has all the facts, and that ain't me, right? And so I don't know. I don't know if that guy cutting me off on the freeway, if his wife's in the hospital and he might just be an asshole, right? Maybe. I don't know, but I can't judge him. Same thing with these traffickers. What I can do is ensure that I use my freedom of choice to limit their freedom to be able to pass on that trauma ever again. But I can do so from a place of compassion. And that's really what we need to do as humanity. We need to take a few steps back and say, okay, if there's links in this chain, the very, very end link of this chain is the abuse of a child. This is somewhere where we don't want anybody to ever get to. So we have to ask ourselves, if we're going to break this chain, how far back on this chain can we break it so we never get close, right? What are those links? One of them might be, child pornography, right? Okay, so we need to make sure we break that chain before they become a contact offender. Well, how did they get there? Maybe it was some hardcore pornography. Maybe they're looking at, rape videos and whatever else and getting off. Whatever it is, there's some cycle that we have to back up and say, okay, what chain can we break here? How can we help people heal from these negative behaviors and these addictions, et cetera, that could eventually lead to the exploitation of another human being or a child in this case. So that's what it's really about, is us asking ourselves, what are the links of those chains and how can we back up so that we can fix it back here instead of fighting a fire with fire and just arresting people down here.
You distilled that really well, Paul. I appreciate that. And I mean, I hate to simplify, but hurt people. And, so it starts with hurt at its core. And I know we could talk for hours probably about that. I do want to transition a bit, Paul, and talk about your business journey that then led to your ability to have this philanthropic ability. And I'd love for you to touch on where it might sound like a little silly to say, well, where your passion for children came from. But I imagine it did come from somewhere, not as maybe obvious as I might assume, but certainly would love to hear about that business journey into the philanthropic behaviors you've had and all the great you're doing now.
You bet. Well, Ryan, it's a really important question, especially if we're talking to a group of business owners and entrepreneurs. So back in my early 20s, I had a mentor that was kind of teaching me some different things, took me under his wing. And he told me this. He said, Paul, the average person donates less than 2% of their income to charity. He said, and that's the wealthy people. The broke people actually donate a little bit more than 2%, right? He said, so if you sit here and think, I'm just going to wait until I get rich to donate. No, you need to make a decision today to not just do 2% and not just 5%. He said, I would admonish you to make a commitment that between 10 and 20%. He says, if you go 20, he says, this is going to work way better. He says, go up to 20% of your money to charity. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, crap, I'm earning $2,000 a month at the time. 20% of that, now I have to live on $1,600 instead. Holy crap, I said, I'm going to have to work extra hours just to be able to pay my bills. And he said, no, and on top of that, he says, you need to donate 20% of your time to making a significant impact in the lives of others. He said, I don't care what your religious background is. I mean, there's a scripture at the end of the Old Testament in Malachi that says, bring your tithes, which is 10%, into the storehouse, meaning give to charity, and I'll open the windows of heaven, and there'll be not room enough to receive it. He said that's a universal law. This isn't a religious thing. He says this is a universal law. He said you give, you get, and it always happens that way. And so I did. I made that decision that I would donate 20% of my money and my time to charity. Now I was out. I'm like, okay, where do I give my money to? It's a bum on the streets asking me for drug money, and I had a hard time. I didn't know where it was going. So I made the decision that I was going to focus my charity back then on what I considered the truly innocent, a 9-year-old child in a position completely outside of any decisions that she made, didn't put her on the street begging for food, right? That wasn't decisions that she made. And so I started donating a lot of time and money to child-related charities. I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors for 7 years, incoming chairman for Make-A-Wish in our region when I first got involved with the child trafficking world. Charity went, and I'm telling you what, it works. How does somebody become a partner, let alone a founder of a multi-billion-dollar investment fund? Well, you're not a University of Utah dropout, which is what I am, right? You the statistical probability of me being where I am is almost zero. The only way to get to this point is, you go to school, get to Harvard, get a JD MBA, you go start at the bottom in New York, and maybe 20, 30 years later, you end up being a partner at a fund my size. So the only way I can understand the massive success I've had in all my companies is the fact that I made that decision to be the ultimate good Samaritan, and with the money and the time that I had moving forward. So, and I can count many different instances. I mean, one just quick example. I remember if you ever heard of a radio talk show host by the name of Glenn Beck. He's got a huge following. Glenn wanted to launch his anti-child trafficking campaign from Bangkok, Thailand. It was going to cost $100,000 to get Glenn and his whole team there to put all this together. And the foundation I was working with at the time, we had a bunch of grandmas that were donating $1 a month. That was kind of sacred money. We didn't want to spend $100,000 on this one trip, right? And so I decided to fund it, $100,000. Now myself and my business partner Don funded that. We flew to Thailand and back. And as the plane landed, coming back into the U.S., as the plane landed, as it touched down, I had 2 voicemail messages on my phone. One of them was from a member of the Marriott family saying, "Hey, Paul, I've been looking at your numbers. I want to give you another $10 million in this specific fund." Another one was from one of the guys running Flying J Management and all these gas stations everywhere, saying, with even a bigger number. And my income from those 2 voicemail messages while I was in the air, my income far exceeded what I just put into that charity. So, I tell people I'm not that charitable. I just need help running my companies, and God and the universe knows way better than me on how to do it. So, that's kind of the background of how I got involved from a charitable standpoint.
Well, but, I mean, it does to show, like, what happens when you start giving is you start receiving. And it's like, isn't that the story? I mean, it's amazing. Like, you receive in a lot of different ways, but monetarily, yes, of course, that's what we're talking about a little bit here. But it's sort of like, I don't know, not to get biblical, like the blessings bestowed upon you, like it's real.
It is real. It is real. It's a true principle. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or Hindu. It doesn't matter. It's a universal law. There is a higher power. You can call him Allah, you can call him God, you can call him Jehovah, you can call him whatever you want. There's a higher power very interested in us doing good. And when we do so, then beautiful things happen, not only emotionally, but in this case, financially as well. So yeah, there's a very, in fact, I don't invest. If somebody wants me to invest in their company or whatever else, I first of all ask them about their charity work. If they're not charitable at all, I'm not investing in their company, because I have a much higher success rate in the companies that I invest in that have a charitable purpose. So,
Paul, did you ever think you'd be, an undercover agent? I mean, like I sense the business side of you, and like, I feel, I know the philanthropic side, but the fact that you managed $1 billion funds and all that, none of that surprises me. I sense that side of you and the business acumen and all those things. So I just think about like, that phone call, like to go undercover and like putting your life at risk and do those things. And like, we've all seen Born Identity and all these things. So it's like, but this is real life, dude. Like, I don't know. Wow. How did you wrap your head around that? And I don't know, maybe start there and build towards the story that was the Sound of Freedom.
Absolutely. Well, it's one of my favorite lines in all of the Marvel series is when somebody's asking Batman, all these other superheroes, they all got these special, gifts, right? Batman, so what's your superpower? He's like, I'm rich. Right? Okay. So, right. So building something where you have the ability to really implement change. This is the reason to be successful, guys. Don't just half-ass it. So, okay, I'm just going to settle. No, go big. Go big. Why not go big? Back up when I was 22 years old, I was studying to be a surgeon. I was 2 months away from taking the MCAT, and I got in a major car accident, and I severed all the tendons in my hand. And they didn't know if I'd have the dexterity to be a surgeon. They said, well, you can be a regular doctor. And my answer was, I says, no disrespect, but I don't want to be a regular anything. My goal was not just to be a doctor, but a surgeon, not a regular surgeon, but a heart surgeon, not a regular heart surgeon, but one that operates on kids. I wanted to be a pediatric cardiologist. And so if I'm going to be a garbage man, I'm going to own the dump. right? That's just how I think. I'm gonna go all the way. And so that's what drove me, is so that I could create this life of abundance. And guys, it's okay. It's okay to own a helicopter and a plane and have a basketball court in your basement. It's okay. Why? Because I donate more every year to making a difference in the world than a lot of people earn in 10 or 20 years. That's where you want to get to. This isn't an ego thing. This is hey, you know what? I've done something with my life where I can make a powerful impact. I can create a movie that has a global impact on the things that I'm passionate about, right? That's going big. And so where that started with, just as a kid, I wanted to, go big or go home type thing. Well, moving forward, and I'll go into the story of how Sound of Freedom came about and whatnot. I was super good friends with our attorney general here in Utah, and we went to all these events together. I introduced him to a lot of the wealthy donors to him, et cetera. And he had introduced me to a Homeland Security agent, the one that Jim Caviezel plays in The Sound of Freedom. And they had told me about how there was like 20 plus kids in Cartagena, Colombia that need to be rescued and needed about $50,000 to pull that off. And so, I donated some. We had some of my friends put it together and we helped make that happen. Well, a few weeks later, he called me, the Homeland Security agent. He said, and I was right there by you. I was in Atlanta, Georgia area, and I was at this opulent, event. I was these third and fourth generation billionaire families that I was trying to convince them to put money in my investment fund. And I get this call from the Homeland Security agent. And he said, "Hey, Paul, I'm here in Colombia. There's not just 20 children in Cartagena. There's easily more than 50 here from what our intel is telling us. And there's more than 100 in the surrounding cities tied to other trafficking networks." He said, "We have a plan. We believe we can rescue all 100 plus kids on the same day at the same time, but I need your help." And I said, "Well, how much do you need?" I'm talking with my checkbook, right? "How much do you need?" He said, "I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days?" He said, "The head trafficker down here has a piece of property he wants to develop into a child brothel sex resort. He inherited it from his mom or whatnot. He wants to turn it into a Jeffrey Epstein type of an island, right? He needs a few $1 million to make it happen, and believes he can make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children to wealthy Americans." And he said, I said, "Well, how do I fit in with this?" He said, "Well, he needs somebody who understands real estate to be his investor. And I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate deal with this guy. He'll see through fake money all day long." He said, and I don't know of any successful business owner or real estate guys who've had the training that you've had. He knew a little bit more about my background than most people. I have a special set of skills that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. And he said, "If you come down here and just pretend like you're interested," and I'm like, "Well, I don't have time to fly home. What do I wear?" He says, "Just dress like a wealthy businessman." I look down. I have $2,000 cufflinks on. I've got a $50,000 watch. I've got a suit on that costs more than my first car. I'm like, all right, well, I've got the part, And 2 days later, I'm in Colombia, face to face with the most evil people I've ever met. Now, here's the crazy thing. Ryan. I thought that traffickers would, have multiple earrings in their noses and chains going down to other places in their body and a whole bunch of, face tattoos and all this crap. The first trafficker I met was a businessman in a polo shirt, clean shaven. Didn't look like a thug at all, right? I'm like, oh, this is weird. And the second one I met was a beautiful woman. She was a young girl in her 20s that had a fake modeling agency that she was working with. That you saw these in the movie Sound of Freedom. She was the beauty queen. And I thought, oh, this is strange. These aren't traffickers, until we sat down and started talking. And indeed, the conversation, when you're having a business meeting and the commodity is children, that business plan gets dark really, really fast. And so we're going through this business plan with them, and halfway through, one of them leans forward and he said, "Pablo, I have a gift for you." I said, "Really? What's your gift?" And he leans forward with his phone. He hands me his phone, and there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on the phone. He said, "This is Princess. She's still a virgin. We just took delivery of some. She's my gift for you for this party." And I thought, oh my God, if we can get these children out before they're ever raped the first time, that's a miracle. And in the movie Sound of Freedom, my character, Pablo, is the wealthy guy who pays for it and whatnot. The only way that Jim Caviezel convinces me to come is he gives a picture of this little 11-year-old girl to my driver, because I turn him down and I'm in the car and I look at this picture and I'm like, oh, and that convinces me to go. In real life, I was already there. I was already face to face with the traffickers when that picture was shown to me, but that galvanized my commitment. That was the first time I saw an actual trafficked child that I know was being trafficked in a picture. And something he said made me realize he had more than her. I said, Fuego, I said, you just took delivery. You have more virgins? He goes, oh yeah, I have 3 or 4 more. I said, now you're bringing those to my party. And what it was is we told him, listen, I will be willing to fund your resort under one condition. I have to verify that you have the inventory. And our intel told us they already had 50 plus kids. Right. And I said, here's the deal. I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks. I'm going to bring my rich friends. You show up with all of your existing inventory. And if I'm happy, I'll fund your whole project. We'll be in business together. You'll make tens of millions of dollars a year. Everything's good. That's what the plan was. So I told him, I said, now you're bringing these virgins to the party too. He goes, oh, no, not the others, just her for you. I said, why not the others? He said, oh, they're too expensive. I said, too expensive? I'm already paying this guy $25,000 for this party. I'm paying him $500 per child for a minimum of 50 children, just for 2 hours in the afternoon, and with him. And he said, Jefe, you already paid $25,000. You want to F these other virgins? And it's going to cost you maybe $2,000, maybe $5,000 for that little one. It's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more. I was legitimately pissed. He's talking about these children like they're commodities. And I'm like, I've got my nice shirt, I've got my nice watch, and I'm like, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He said, oh no, Jefe, no. I said, I was legitimately letting my ego self come out right there, right? I'm like, yeah, I can fucking pay $10,000 all day long, bro. You bring those kids, right? And I said, I want every one of those virgins. Every part of your existing inventory needs to be at that party. Do you understand? I said, and here's the thing. They damn well better be virgins when they get there. They're not for you. They're for me. You understand? He goes, oh, yeah, Jefe, this stupid smile on his face. Fast forward, the guys meet with the U.S. Embassy and everything. These guys end up bringing 54 children to Cartagena. We did 3 separate cities at the same time. We called it Operation Triple Take, a total of over 120 children, the largest child rescue in one day in history that I know of at the time. And so for me, I'm in the Cartagena one. We see all these children being brought off this boat, and it was a harrowing sight. You know, these kids, you could tell they were drugged. They put them all in this little grass hut palapa area, and we bring the traffickers separate. We have to separate the traffickers from the kids. We don't want the kids seeing the money changing hands and the guns and everything else. And also, we need to get the traffickers to stay on camera exactly why the kids were there. So they can't say later on in court, oh, I thought we were going to a pool party. No, you said right here that this child that you got at this, was willing to do this. This is the price, everything else. And so we're having this conversation with these undercover cameras. And one of the traffickers gets up and he says, Pablo, this is what changed my life forever. He said, Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you. And he goes in the house where the palapa area where the children were being held. And we could hear a few of the kids starting to cry when he went in. And it took him almost 10 minutes with these crying kids to calm them down. And then he came out with 4 virgins, scared to death. 3 little girls, 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared. Kind of effed up monster thinks that that's attractive. Every cell in my body wanted to hug these kids and say, you're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents. I couldn't say that. I'm sitting there on this chair and they bring this little girl out. It's the same one that this guy showed me on his phone, the same little girl. In the movie, we took multiple rescue missions and put them all together. In the movie, that little girl wasn't at the island. We had to go into the jungle to find her. In reality, that jungle was looking for a little boy. It was an entirely different team, entirely different country, etc. But we took multiple stories and put them together. In real life, she was there. That girl that was shown to me, the girl they called Princess, she was there at that rescue. And they stood her in front of me. I'm sitting down, Ryan. She's standing up and we're almost eye level. She's just a little bit taller than me. And all I could see was fear in her eyes. And I took her little hands. She was shaking. And I asked her, I says, "¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name?" And she didn't answer. She didn't know what to say. I'm sure it's because her real name wasn't Princess, right? She was trying to figure out what she should say to keep the traffickers happy. And I just said, "Está bien, it's okay." And I told the traffickers, I said, "You know what? It's not time for the party yet. We still have some things to negotiate. Send them back in." But I had made a commitment that moment, looking at her in her eyes, a commitment to myself, to God, to that child, that I would dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. And so after the agents came, stormed the party, arrested everybody, us too, the bad guys think that we were extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. 30 Child Protective Services people came in with the children. And they started laughing and singing with the children just to calm them down. And that sound of freedom, that singing, that laughter, compared to half an hour before with the sound of crying from in there, that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. And that's why we decided to name the movie The Sound of Freedom, is that that sound of that laughter was liberating. And I started crying. I turned to the agent that was by me and I said, that changed my whole life. I said, I spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I've been doing some good charity work, but I want to make a difference. I want to make a massive difference. I want to fight this evil. I'm Paul Hutchinson. I can build companies. I can fight. What is it? What do you need? And he said, Paul, he said, there's a huge demand for parties like this coming from wealthy business owners who look and dress and walk and talk like you. He said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life. And so for the next 2 years, I came in as Paul Stone, this wealthy, I took down all of my social media, all my fake everything, all my real stuff, and put up a fake social media and I already had pictures of me around the world with Ferraris and Lamborghinis, all this bullshit stuff, right? But in there, that was this wealthy playboy energy that these traffickers were looking for. And then after a couple years, I was recruited to do deep cover work. Instead of being the wealthy guy that shows up at the day of the party that they're bringing, that all the undercover guys, I got asked to do deep cover, 2 a.m. in downtown Mexico City, downtown Port-au-Prince, Haiti, all of these dark, difficult areas to be there and physically connecting with the traffickers and finding out who's holding the kids, et cetera. So the majority of my missions were in that work, in finding out, being on the ground, in some pretty harrowing situations and finding these kids.
I mean, it's like I'm sitting here listening, and I'm like enthralled and disgusted at the same time. It's a weird, like, emotional journey, thinking about it. Yeah. It's like, and I'm sure, like, with the movie, it's like you've got the storytelling that happens in a movie and all that, like you said, but then just the reality of the subject matter is just, I don't know. I just, the evil and the, hats off to you. I don't know. I feel like I would have like blown somebody's head off or something. I don't know if I have the calm, like to
in the
just
beginning, that's how I felt. I'm that very, very first day that we met the traffickers, when the trafficker showed me his phone and there was that girl there, one of the Navy SEALs was standing behind me. He was my real bodyguard and my show bodyguard, right? Yeah. And he looks down at that picture of that little girl and he's like, I need to go check out that restaurant and just make sure everything is safe and whatever. Later in debriefing, he's like, guys, that little girl looked like my little girl at home. I almost unholstered my weapon and shot him right there. He said, I would have blown our cover completely and lost all the kids. But, and I'll tell you this, for many years, I told my undercover operators, I said, guys, it's not our job to judge. That's God's job. But if we need to arrange that meeting a little bit early, it's all good.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, at this stage, like, have you done, the gig's up, right? I mean, you can't, your name's out there, I imagine. Like, it's, so,
yeah,
you
right
can't
before
really,
the movie, we decided to go public. I took down all of my fake stuff. Now, this is probably more dangerous now than when I was face to face with traffickers, because now, I'm out there. They've counted all of the, views. I mean, we're in the tens, hundreds of millions of total views on different things. So there's a lot of good people that are resonating, but yeah, there's a lot of bad people that are in jail that may or may not be hearing my stuff, and that's okay. I'm if I'm not willing to step out, if I wasn't willing to step out there that day one, then there'd be all those thousands of kids that are not home with their families today. And if I'm not willing to go out there and use my voice, then there's going to be more millions of kids that get in this horrible situation. So my goal is to make sure that people are aware and they learn what to look for and signs with their kids, et cetera, so that we can prevent this from ever happening in the first place with our children.
Amen. Talk about the movie, the business side of putting a movie out there, investing in a movie, promoting a movie, like, I'll
tell you this.
Good, bad, ugly.
So if you want a good chance of making money, don't invest in a movie. I mean, this was literally lightning strikes type thing that this happened the way that it did, and it did so well. I mean, we only spent $14 million on this movie, and we've done $250 million in the box offices. So it's a true gift from God that it happened. The reality is, I knew back when we were investing, I'm like, you know what? I've thrown money away at pretty stupid things before. This is probably one of the smarter ones that I could do. And with the goal of simply creating awareness. I knew that it needed to go big in order to really create a difference. In fact, back at the time of the Civil War, back at the time of Abraham Lincoln, there was a lady by the name of Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Now, books at the time, that was the media of the age, right? And that book created an awareness with good people throughout the country, so much so that later on, when Abraham Lincoln met her, he reportedly said, "So you're the little lady that wrote the book that started the big war," right? So that's the goal here, not to start a physical war, but to create a movement with enough people, realizing that maybe a book wasn't it, but today that same media is big Hollywood type stuff. And we had done a few small documentaries, but nothing like this. And so we went into Sony, Lionsgate, Paramount, told them the story, the same one I just told you. And they were super excited. They were excited about taking it and do something with it, but they wanted full control. They wanted full literary control. They could have put me and my character and Jim Caviezel in a gay sex scene in the middle of the movie, and we couldn't do anything about it, right? They could have had one of our operators do some bad things with the kids, whatever. They could have thrown it however they wanted to twist the plot. We didn't want that. We needed the real message to get out so that we could really create a movement. And so, and they could have tabled it for 10 years and not done anything with it. So we decided, you know what, we're going to do this privately. We're going to start out. I put in the very, very first money for the writing of the script. And we actually wrote it up at my family cabin, locked them in for a couple of weeks, all the script writers, until they figured it all out. And then raised some money, not only mine, but there was my money. There was a couple of my operators that put in $100,000 or whatever. And then we had some bigger money that came in from the Waltons, the Walmart family, and the Carlos Slim family, and the Paul DiGiorio family. Some pretty big families put some bigger money in. And then we had the movie finished more than 5 years ago, ready to go, ready to take to the world. And we got shut down everywhere. You can put 100 million into a movie, not just 14 million. And if you don't have distribution, it's worth nothing, zero. And a year went by, 2 years went by, and we're like getting that. And the problem was in the beginning is that our distribution was already pre-set up with Fox International. They had helped us in some of the filming in Colombia, et cetera. Well, then Disney came in and bought Fox International and had no interest in distributing the film. So then we're like, okay, and they have first rights of refusal on it. They have the contract itself, and they're not going to take it. Now what? Now what do we do? We had to raise even more money to buy out Disney just to be able to have the ability to move forward. And then we got turned down by everybody. Amazon and Netflix, everybody just turned us down. No. And at first I thought, you know what, maybe we're the only people that think this is a good movie, right? Why are these guys just turning us down? We realized later when we finally found our distribution through Angel Studios and it was a grassroots movement that took it to the world. And then these same people that were telling us, no, the public doesn't want it, mainstream media, social media, all these giants they try to shut us down. They're like crickets. We're the #1 independent film in the world last year. And you don't hear about it at all from the mainstream media at all. We weren't even the Oscars a couple weeks ago. We're literally one of the top 10 independent films in history, and the Oscars completely ignored us. Completely, right? Why? Because our message doesn't fit with their narrative. And so we knew it was going to be an uphill battle fighting against the establishment. But that's exactly what's happening. You have to ask yourself, what's being force-fed to your family through social media, through their selective criteria of who they're going to censor and who they're not. And the same thing's happening with Hollywood, where they get to decide what they censor and what they don't. You don't get to decide. In fact, you go back about 20 plus years and you go the history of Angel Studios, who was the one that was our distributor. They got sued by Hollywood years and years ago. Why? Because they had created a little device that allows you and me to take any movie. We can take let's say we really love a rated R movie, but we want to show it to our kids, but we don't want the sex, we don't want the violence, we don't want the profanity. They had a little device where you and I could make the decision of what we wanted to censor. We could turn it up to, okay, cut out the profanity, cut out this, and we could watch that exact movie with all that stuff being cut out. Well, Hollywood, with their agenda of deciding exactly what they force feed your family, didn't want you as the father of your family to have the ability to censor what's coming into your home. They wanted to be able to force feed you whatever. So, and now on the other hand, they're censoring us by not allowing us on their distribution platforms. You have to wake up, guys, and ask yourself why we as humanity have gotten to the point where we've got schools making the decision as to what the gender of our children should be based on our third grader and what they're hearing on their social media, whatever. Are you kidding me? Right? We have created this by allowing our moral foundation to be degraded over years and years by the media that we consume.
Did they? We could probably have a whole episode around this topic, probably a whole week's episode. We have to have a part 2 of this, Paul.
I would love that.
But was it because they were wrong? Or was it, are we going deeper? Are we suggesting a deeper lack of morality in the narrative? Or was it just because they were wrong and that you were being successful without them?
No, it goes deep. It goes really deep. And I was hoping that Mel Gibson was going to come out with his documentary soon, hopefully really soon, talking about the corruption in Hollywood and the pedophilia in Hollywood and the, this. Here's the thing, Ryan. This kind of corruption goes all the way to the top everywhere. It's in the political, and it's not just the right or the left. This is what frustrates me. I bleed. I was at the inauguration with Trump, right? I'm pretty out there about my political beliefs. However, what makes me super mad is that they tried to make this a right-left issue. It's never a right. We've arrested just as many Republicans as we have Democrats, right? And for for even some of the actors in the movie to go publicly and say, no, it's these damn Democrats that are raping kids. No, it's not, guys. This corruption goes to the top on both sides. And it's in Hollywood, it's in our government leaders. Do you really think that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
Hell no.
No, I think most of us don't think that, right? We're like, no, we're not that stupid. So then the question is, why? Why did he even exist? Was this just him, that he was just getting off on kids, or was there something deeper? I'm telling you right now that I was trained years and years ago. There was a book called the CIA's Book of Dirty Tricks. In there was an entire section on blackmail, right? How do you get the worst kind of dirt possible on somebody so that you can control their votes for life, right? You get a senator, you get a congressman, you get a judge, and you get them on video with a 13-year-old. You control their vote for life, guys. You know, and so, and you can tell when your political leaders have been compromised. They'll get in with all this gumption and so excited about making a difference and doing what their people really want them to do, and then all of a sudden they flip, and you're like, what happened? Who's controlling you? Who's got crap on you? And that's in their playbook, and it has been from the beginning. And so, yeah, there's a need for draining of the swamp everywhere, in Hollywood, in politics, in the three-letter agencies. It's everywhere. It's pervasive, and we need to clean up our leadership in order for us to really heal as humanity.
Yeah, that's right. We know what the Sound of Freedom is, but we're not exactly sure who the face of evil is. That's the scary proposition. Paul, I know we could talk more. I want to have a part 2. We do have to run with the schedule. Tell everybody where they can learn more about the Sound of Freedom. I know there's a book coming out. You've got other initiatives. You've got a million things going on. I want to give everybody where they can find out about all of it.
Absolutely. I have a book as part of what I call the Child Liberation series that's coming out in a couple months. We're about 2 months out from it being out on Amazon. And you can find links to it to pre-sign up for it, et cetera, on the webpage, liberatinghumanity.com. So liberatinghumanity.com. You can find me all over social media. Just type in liberating.humanity on most social media, except for I just barely opened up a Twitter account. I don't know why. I had no social media at all 9-10 months ago. And I took my Instagram and TikTok, but now they're going to shut down TikTok. Why? Because they can't control it. Okay, let me just throw that in there. You know, it's all about censorship. And if you've got something they can't censor, they have a problem with that, right? And but I think I have a few 100,000 followers on those two, but I think I have like 100 followers on my X. But that's under Paul Hutchinson. It's not Liberating Humanity. It's just Paul Hutchinson. You can come in there. So if you want to, and here's the other reason to go to Liberating Humanity. We're putting together a bunch of different programs to help educate you as parents, help you recognize the signs with your kids of things that they might be in trouble or whatnot. And we also have a lot of my original trainers, my Krav Maga trainer, my edged weapons trainer, my situational awareness trainer that actually does training for the CIA, FBI, and Secret Service, et cetera. These guys are some of the best of the best, and we're putting their programs available on Liberating Humanity just to keep your family safe. And if you want to help out with the foundation, you can go to liberateChildren.org. You can look up Child Liberation Foundation on Google, or you can just type in liberateChildren.org. You can not only find some tools to help keep your kids safe there, you can also get involved. You can help out with $1 a month, $5 a month, $500 a month, whatever, or just a one-time donation to help with the safe houses and the programs that we're putting together for the kids, et cetera. If there are investors that are like, hey, I want to do some solid impact investing, reach out to me through my Liberating Humanity site. We have some cash flow models of building healing retreats for adults, right? Throughout Latin America, these guys can come in for 4 or 5 days as a fully immersive, transformational healing experience with guided meditation, some other tools, et cetera. Those things are powerful. And these guys will pay $3,000 or $4,000 a person. and we can bring in 20 plus people a week. These are cash flowing well, and they are helping people heal, and they are part of the entire Liberating Humanity side. So if there's investors that want to, play with us in that, just reach out to me directly, and we can talk about what that looks like, as well as a impact investment that actually pays really well. So anyway, that's just liberatinghumanity.com or liberatechildren.org.
Paul, I want to thank you for coming on. I do want to do this again, and I do, I mean it. Thank you for the impact you're having. There's we can all, start slicing the bologna really thin about the way we judge this, that, or the other. But the bottom line is, if most people were having 1/1,000th the impact that you're having, we'd be a much better place. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ryan. Super, super grateful to be on. And guys, here's the thing. You don't have to affect millions of lives. You fix yourself. You spend a year healing yourself. And then in next year, you mentor 2 people on what they need to do to get past their trauma and whatnot. And if they pass that on, pay it forward with another 2 people. Literally 33 years from now, we have 8.5 billion people. You've literally healed the world by passing it on. So just do anything, just a small, small difference in the lives of others, and we can fix this problem.
Hey guys, we appreciate Paul. You know where to find all the highlight clips, all the episode info, and where the links are for this. We're going to have it on our show, on my feed, ryanisright.com. We appreciate you for listening and making us #1 on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time on Right About Now.
This has been Right About Now with Ryan Alford, a Radcast Network production. Visit ryanisright.com for full audio and video versions of the show, or to inquire about sponsorship opportunities. Thanks for listening.